All right. So, it's a rhetorical analysis of an advertisement. You get to pick whatever you want. Oh, I'm going to switch this out. You get to pick whatever. I feel like a space cadet when I wear this. I hate it so much. You get to pick whatever you want. So I don't care what your advertisement is. It does not matter. And we are going to kind of discuss some like potential ads the next couple of classes, like after this week. Okay, these lectures are really important. So we're like, if you hear them, then you know what you're doing and you can start working on your paper. The other stuff is just practice to really get you like in the zone to write your paper. Does that make sense? So like, this is the information you need to know, and then the rest is practice until we write the paper. So, the assignment sheet is here somewhere. So, rhetorical analysis assignment. Here's the assignment. Okay. It's not anything crazy or complicated. It's just, hey, write me a paper analyzing how an advertisement uses logos, pathos, and ethos to convince the audience to do something. Okay? It's very standard. I'm not trying to make it complicated or challenging to you in any way beyond how challenging this assignment is as it is. Okay? So 2 to 5 pages. Really, it's 3 pages. Y'all should be able to write 3 pages at this level. Sorry, not sorry. Okay? I lowered it to 2 because some of you have stuff going on. Whatever, like if it feels heavy to you at this moment, you do what you can and leave the rest. You write 2, you turn it in, and you be done with it, right? But know that other instructors are going to require you to write a 3-page paper. And it should feel like more natural to you by the time you leave this class. So my actual goal is for you to write 3. Are you going to get in trouble if you write 2 full pages all the way down to the bottom and not 3? No, but I might write a note that says, okay, work toward writing 3. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so my real aim is to write 3 full pages, okay? The other thing I have to say about this is that you can choose any advertisement you want, and think about an advertisement a little differently than you normally do. So like, yes, you might have an advertisement that sells the Happy Belly purified water from Amazon Fresh, right? Okay, yeah, it might sell you a product, or you might have an advertisement that's convincing you to do something, right? You might have an advertisement that says, hey, you should come to this church because this is why we're awesome, and here's this like 10-minute long ad. Okay, or you might have an advertisement that wants you to believe in an idea. Sometimes advertisements can ask you to believe in an idea and convince you to buy something at the same time. So if you think about like the best ads that you see on TV, it's like a Nike ad or an Adidas ad or whatever. They're selling their product, but they're also trying to get you to believe in an idea. Okay, they're not saying, hey, buy these Marc Jacobs boots. They might be saying, hey, you can be a powerful woman and do career and have a life and have a child and have a husband, and you're doing all these things, and then they're just showing someone wearing the boots. Does that make sense, guys? So yes, they're selling the product, but they're also selling the idea, and you get to pick what you want to focus on in your essay. If you're a literal person, write about how they're selling you that product. Okay, if you like the idea, write about the idea. They're trying to convince you that you can do all these things, right? For sure. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so an advertisement could be a trailer for a movie. It could be a poster or something, like a piece of propaganda, if you're into history, okay? So don't necessarily just go be like, what's the most creative ads? What are the best advertisements? And then you're gonna pull up the Thai life insurance ad that all of my students like to write about, and I'm like, you could pick something that you really are interested in. Pick something you're genuinely interested in. If you love soccer, find a soccer advertisement. Does that make sense, guys? I just went to scratch my face and hit this thing. So be creative, pick something you're interested in. I do not like writing papers. I don't know why I picked this major of English. I like poetry, I like reading poetry, I like art stuff, okay? But like writing is not my favorite thing to do, okay? So that's why I try to open the prompt up for you guys, and let you pick something you're passionate about. Okay, my creativity teacher would say, pick something you're obsessed with and look through an ad about that. So that when you're writing, you're not really like thinking like, I hate writing, this sucks. It's like you're thinking about how you can really convince me of whatever this is, okay? Your job is not to convince me to buy the product or believe in the idea. Your job is to convince me that the advertisement is effective. I'm gonna write this down. Does this marker work? Okay, so is the ad, and those of you who took class with me, you know this phrasing, right? Is the ad effective in convincing the audience? That's the question you're going to answer, okay? If your answer is no, do not pick that advertisement. Duh. Okay, just because you hate Nike and you don't like their political stance, that's fine. But do not use this paper as a place to rant about how you hate Nike and you think they're stupid and you're never buying their products. Pick something that is effective, that you believe is effective, okay, and it's your opinion. Okay, so this is the main driver of your paper. It needs to be in MLA formatting. I just recorded a lecture on MLA formatting. I will send that to you guys, okay, in the other class. Make sure you're meeting that length requirement. If you don't write at least 2 full pages on this paper, I will take off points, okay? Did I talk about running a marathon in here? I don't want to ask you because you probably heard me say that. Did I talk about running a marathon in here? If I'm running a marathon and you're at the finish line and your literal job that you are getting paid to do is to hand me 2 cups of water because I need, 8 ounces or however many, and you hand me 1 cup and a little half in the second cup, it's 2 cups, here's 2 cups. Well, it was actually only 1.5 and I'm dead now because I needed all those ounces, right? Like you didn't do your job. That's why this kind of stuff matters. Will you use MLA formatting in your job? No. Does length requirement matter? No. I realize that it's stupid, okay? But following specific instructions matters no matter what job you have, right? Okay. All right, so, I don't know why I clicked out of that. In this unit, there we go. We have the lectures that I'm about to give you guys right here. Okay, so if you leave here and you're like really confused and you don't understand anything I said, all this information is going to be recorded here, but it's also in these 2 separate lectures. Okay, the Toulmin Method has a Google Doc and a lecture. Okay, I did record it from home, so it's like a voiceover over a document. I feel like it's really helpful because I've had time to like plan and I'm not rambling around like I am in class. So it kind of depends on which one you prefer. You can also just reference the document here as you move through the class. This is the method that I teach, how I teach my students how to write papers. Okay, it is useful, it is helpful. It will make you like your teachers will be like, you're the most amazing writer. And you're gonna be like, yeah, thanks. Okay, I promise you. They tell me that, and previous to now, I had teachers tell me I was the worst writer. Granted, this isn't an English master's program, so like take it with a grain of salt, the worst writer of all the best writers, right? But they were like, you're terrible, you suck. And I was like, okay. Now, my teachers who are highly trained, better than the teachers I had before, and they're like, you're the best writer I've ever read. And it's because of this, okay? So, this is huge. First, I'm gonna tell you guys about rhetoric, okay? Most of you should know this information. If I say something and you're like, I don't understand what that is, ask a question. Yes, you're on the recording, but no one can see you, so they don't know who you are, okay? Literally the last class, I was recording, and then I said, does anybody have a question? They said no. I turned the recording off, and this guy was like, me, I have a question. I'm like, why didn't you just ask it? Maybe someone watching this video wants to know your question, right? Okay. So rhetoric has 3 parts. Are you guys familiar with this? Yes, no, maybe? A little bit? Okay. Rhetoric has 3 parts. Okay? Rhetoric comes to us from the Greeks. Think Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, that era, okay? And the whole era was really focused on being a good speaker, communicator, being able to debate, okay? Understanding the liberal arts of how people's brains work, how you can really convince someone to do something. Okay, so rhetoric is the art of persuasion. And it's called an art because the Greeks firmly believed that it was an art. And it's an art because not everyone is good at it. Okay? So what are some names or some jobs where you have to use rhetoric and you want to be good at it?
Car salesman?
Sales, any kind of sales, but yes, car salesman. I am not good at selling people things. Like being like the slimy salesman. I worked in cosmetic sales, so I was good at that, right? Because I know that you need this lipstick, right? But selling other things and just trying to sell it isn't it for me, which is why I don't do sales anymore. What did you say?
An attorney.
An attorney!
Admissions representative.
My friend's in a court case right now, and she was like, attorneys are like evil. They take pieces of things and put them together to convince the jury of stuff. She's like, but I read the documents and they're only taking pieces. And I was like, yeah, it's like their job to convince the jury of whatever they want. Like, for sure. That's rhetoric. What was the other thing you said?
Admissions representative. Like for school.
Yeah, recruiters to the military. One of my former students just posted, a recruiter like texted him, and he was like, oh, hell no. Like, no, absolutely not. And I was just giggling because I was like, I can't imagine this individual being in the military. It was very funny. But yeah, they're trying to sell you on this idea. They're like, what can I say to Joe or Joanna to convince them to come do this thing, right? To come to this school or join this branch of the military, whatever it is, right? Okay, and just so you guys know, you use rhetoric every day, right? If you want to ask something of me, convince me of something, ask me to like cancel class or give you an extension on a paper, you might use rhetoric to convince me, okay? And how you do that is you think about the 3 parts of rhetoric. It's called the rhetorical triangle. Okay, and what are the 3 parts? They end in OS. Logos, pathos or pathos, and ethos. And it doesn't matter where they go on the triangle. This should be an equilateral triangle, okay? Meaning all sides are equal. It doesn't matter what order they're in. You should consider them all at the same time, okay? So I'm gonna write them here, and then I will explain them to you. OS, guys, just means like, hey, this is a Greek word. And I know this P looks capital, but it shouldn't be. Sometimes students do that, and they're like, well, you did that in your lecture. I'm like, well, I didn't mean to. Okay? So, logos, pathos or pathos, ethos. I don't care about your pronunciation. Okay? They should all be thought about equally. I like to use my husband as an example. I hope he never sees this lecture. I hope I don't have any trouble uploading it, because he will have to see it to help me upload it. But I like to use him as an example in my lecture, because if I want to convince him of something, this makes me sound really manipulative, but this is like how we are as humans, right? We have to think about, like, if I want to convince you to do something, which one of these is really going to hit home with you? And with him, he's a robot in a human's body, it's this one, okay? Because logos is the appeal to logic. Okay, when I was a student, I played soccer as an student athlete in college, and we would go to class, and then my teammates would be like on our way to practice, so we'd talk about like whatever we learned that day. I don't know why we did that. I guess we were nerds. This was like right at the beginning of cell phones, where we didn't really like text a lot. We didn't really like have our phones all the time. And my classmates, I remember coming out of English class, and my teacher is like this old school from UT, like very strict professor. And he had been teaching us about rhetoric. And they were like, what's rhetoric? And I was like, yeah, it's logos, pathos, ethos. And they're like, what does that mean? I'm like, I don't know. Logos means logic. And they're like, but like, what do you do with it? Like, what is it for? I'm like, I don't know. Okay, so I may not have been paying attention when he was lecturing. It's maybe not his fault. It might be my fault. I was 18, so who knows? Okay, but it's the appeal to logic. So if I'm talking to my husband and I say, can we please go to Mexico in October of next year, which I am going to have this conversation with him shortly, I need to think about what can I say that's logical to him that will make sense, right? So I'm going to think about, okay, like it's a long weekend that weekend. So like if we go, we could get more bang for our buck by going early and getting a longer time there, not having to miss work because it's a long weekend, right? And your mom could take our child because it'll be easy to just go and drop her off there and leave her there for that time. Instead of it being like 2 days, it could be like 5 days. So then we really don't miss any work, right? So logically, it does make sense to go on this weekend. Flights will be cheaper because there's not going to be as many people going as there will be at Thanksgiving. Those are logical facts, right? So if you want to convince someone where I'm standing like right where you're trying to look, I know I'm going to move in just a second. Just yell at me to move if you need me to. If you want to convince someone that where logos is like the driving factor for what rules their life, data, statistics, facts, right? Okay. And my husband, y'all, is that person. He has a little robot tattooed on his body to signify that idea. His mom calls him the Tin Man because he has no heart. He does, but it's just buried in there somewhere. Okay? He is definitely this person. Okay? I can almost always convince him to do almost anything if I give him facts, statistics, data that makes sense and is logical. Okay? And a commercial will do this to you, right? When they say, okay, 95% of people who tried this toothpaste is my favorite example, I have no idea why. 95% of people who tried this toothpaste felt like it made their teeth whiter. And you're like, well, if 95% tried it, then I feel like it might work, right? Most likely it'll work. Does that make sense, guys? Or like 9 out of 10 dentists. I don't know what happened to the 10th dentist. I don't know why that's always the same statistic they give in every single toothpaste commercial, right? But it's true, and it convinces us. Even if we're not aware, it's working to convince us. Does that make sense, guys? So that's logos. Usually if you hear a number, that's probably an attempt at logos. Hopefully this marker works. I'm going to try to like visually divide this so y'all can actually see. Okay, now, this is the key. If you want to convince me of something, I told you all this last semester, if you want to convince me of something, you use this. And I don't know if my husband is aware of this. He really should be. Okay? Because this is how you get to me. And it's through what? They appeal to what? Emotions. Yeah, you probably could have just guessed that about me even not knowing, right? Okay, appeal to emotions. Emotional appeal is pathos. You will hear probably outside of English class someone say pathos and someone say ethos sometime in your life. Now that I've introduced these to you in depth, you're going to notice when you hear it probably. There's some psychological principle that talks about that. Okay? But those are terms that are like just using conversation outside of classrooms, so make sure that you understand this. Appeal to emotions. How do you appeal to someone's emotions?
Empathy.
What?
Empathy.
Yep. Empathy. So like, hey, have you been in this situation before, person watching this commercial? You have? Well, you really need this product because the next time you're in this situation, right, this product can help you where you're not feeling so miserable. Right? This product saved the day for you. That's empathy. It's saying, hey, you've been there. you need this to help you the next time you're there. Does that make sense, guys? Okay. Empathy. Sympathy. Okay, how would they make you feel sympathetic to them? By doing what? What do they show you?
I've been there.
Okay, well that's definitely empathy, right? But how do they make you, what do they use to make you feel sympathy?
That make you feel like the Hungry Kids in Africa commercial where they
What is it about that commercial?
they always make you feel bad
Body
because you have
language.
food and somebody else doesn't.
Yes,
Have you ever?
you guys are right. It's the images, right? The visuals, you're saying body language, right?
Music.
Music. Sorry, my handwriting is like terrible. Music. Both the words in the song and the sound of the song. Okay? I don't know music terms, y'all. Yes.
Wait, that's right in my head.
Yes, because, okay, think about that ASPCA commercial. I turn it off every single time. Why? Because I'm an extremely emotional person. I might cry right now. I don't know why, right? But like, if I think about the commercial, it might make me sad, and it's overwhelming, okay? Because I'm just like that. I hate that about myself, but I'm that person, right? But that commercial hits with all of these. They probably get a lot of people to donate who are very emotional, but not as emotional as me, right? Because the name of the song is In the Arms of the Angels, okay? And it's saying, in the arms of the angels, fly away from here. Meaning, that kitten that reached out to you through the screen, you didn't adopt it. You didn't donate. It died. It's in the arms of the angels. It's flying away now. And it's because you didn't give us any money. Right? Like, that's what the song is saying. Okay? And then it sounds sad. In the arms of the angels. It's like really soft. I'm not a good singer. Right? My daughter's always like, can you stop singing? I'm like, no. Yeah. And then the visual. The kitten's reaching out from the cage. The puppy looks like it's crying tears. Okay? It's shivering. Its eyes are huge, right? It just looks so pitiful and sad. It's terrible. It's horrible. But the images, the sound of the music, the lyrics of the song are things that we don't realize are really like trying to hit our emotions, okay? And if they're able to hit our emotions, they're able to convince us to donate, most likely, or turn it off, okay? So these are all examples of pathos, okay? Empathy is a really big one in most commercials though, right? If they're showing you a video of someone doing something and you imagine yourself as that person, that's empathy, okay? So a lot of times that's what the commercials are doing. All right. Ethos has two parts. What are the two pieces of ethos? One of them starts with E. Ethics. Brainy, are you looking at notes?
Yeah.
Sorry, I said your name. Hopefully you don't care. Ethics, and then the other one is credibility. Okay? Most of the time, when you hear ethos, they're going to be probably talking about credibility. A lot of professors like to step up on the soapbox and rant about how their ethos is so important, right? Their credibility as to what they know and what school they went to and how they're a doctor and whatever. I will say, when I'm doctor, I'm going to make my students call me doctor.
I was wondering that.
I worked my butt off to get my master's degree. It was hell for me, literally, as close as literal as you could get, okay? And today when a student emailed me and said, Hillary, about lost my mind. And I think he was doing it because he was agitated with me, and he was trying to like really hit that nerve. So I took a breath, and I just said, just so you know, do not ever refer to a professor by their first name. And then I moved on, because I was like, I'm not going to give him the reaction. He had already been emailing me, right? And then all of a sudden decided that that was what he was going to say. Very strange. But, right, that's an ethos situation of, I have credibility, right, by doing what I'm doing. So I'm not Hillary anymore, right? I'm Professor G. You could even just call me G. And that still gives me more credibility than like my first name. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so this in the commercial though, right, can come by a title, a doctor, a dentist, right? That's giving them credibility, okay? Or even the name of the brand. So this is where like a lot of these Nike commercials, I feel like this is like a lecturing pulpit, and I don't like that I'm standing here, but I also, it's weird. It's very, what do you do with this thing? What's the purpose of it?
What you're doing.
To do this? Focus.
Logo.
Yeah, so, thanks. Yeah, the logo, so like a lot of times the commercial, and this is what I really like about like watching football, the commercials that are on during the football games. Sometimes you're watching the commercial and you're like, what is this a commercial for? They didn't tell me. And like they're purposefully trying to get you to look for that logo. Okay, and they don't tell you on purpose. And usually it's like, oh, it's Nike, it's Adidas, it's Ford, it's whatever car commercial, right? Okay, but they don't tell you till the end. And the whole commercial is really not about the product, but you see it. Okay, and even just seeing it gives them credibility. Okay, whether you, and I like to use Nike as my example, but like it's not telling you anything how I feel about Nike. I don't really care either way, but if you're watching the commercial and the Nike symbol is in there, it doesn't matter how you feel personally about Nike, they're still credible. Because when you see that symbol, you know what it means. Okay, and you can assume that the majority of people know what it means. So therefore, it has credibility. Okay, this is something I like to explain because sometimes it's hard to remove our personal viewpoints from watching a commercial, but when you watch a commercial, you need to think about, when you're analyzing it, from a general audience perspective, not just like your personal viewpoint about that company, okay? So, credibility can also come in the form of an anecdote, and I forgot that over here. An anecdote, guys, is also pathos, because it's saying, hey, I'm emotional and I'm telling you this story about myself, maybe you can relate, and then you also support this company, donate to this company, whatever, okay? But in the same hand, an anecdote can also be credibility. So this is something that when your teachers talked about this topic before, they should have told you that sometimes a piece of evidence can be both ethos and pathos, or it can be all three of these. Technically, an anecdote could be logos, pathos, or ethos. It shows credibility, and credibility is logic, right? But also, it's an anecdote, so it's appealing to my emotions. You get to pick what you want to talk about. If you see an anecdote and you really want to talk about that anecdote as credibility for this product, talk about it as credibility. There's no like right answer, which is why everyone hates English. Okay? You get to choose. It's your opinion. As long as you prove it, and we're going to talk about that in a second, how you prove it, you're good. Okay? So, credibility. The company, the speaker, someone with a title, or an anecdote from like a real person. Anecdote means like personal story. You guys good there? Okay. Ethics, right, is the company, and I'm just saying company in general, but it might be a church or a sports team or something, right? Is the company saying that you are a good person by supporting their company, donating to them, believing in their idea, doing whatever they're trying to get you to do? Okay, that's ethics, that's ethical. Okay, so if you're talking about starving children in whatever country, and they're trying to get you to donate, they're most likely going to appeal to your ethics, right? And say, hey, if you donate your coffee every day, you're a good person. You don't need to go to Starbucks and get that coffee. You can make it at home, save those dollars, and give them to someone else. And then you would be helping someone else, and you'd still get your coffee, right? That's an ethical appeal, saying you're a good person if you donate to us to help us help others. Okay, that's the easiest way for me to explain ethics. It's kind of hard to explain. Not every commercial is going to have an ethical appeal. If you're watching a really silly Doritos commercial and they're talking about Doritos fingers and like, you know, they have like Tom Brady, he's got Doritos fingers, or I don't know, whoever, there may not be an ethical appeal there. Does that make sense? Unless they're saying, like, hey, don't wipe your Doritos fingers on someone else and like bully them, or you know, I'm just like maybe that's a good idea for a commercial, but there's probably not an ethical appeal there. Don't stress if you don't find one of these in your commercial. That's my point. Okay, because not every commercial is going to focus on these, and you guys should be advanced students where you don't have to nitpick and say, these are the parts where it's here, these are the parts where it's here, and these are the parts where it's here. I've had students write their entire paper on pathos before. Okay? That's fine with me.
So we don't have to choose all of.
Not if you don't feel like they're important in the commercial. Yeah.
Can you give another example of ethos?
Which one?
Let's go with ethics.
So, ethics. We're gonna watch a commercial, an example of a commercial, Poopery. And in the commercial, she's saying like our product is made from essential oils. And she shows someone using like Lysol aerosol spray. And on the spray, it has like a skull and crossbones like painted on the bottle. And it's supposed, on the can, and it's supposed to be like save the environment. And then they show like people coughing after she sprays it. Don't like harm other people's lungs by using aerosol spray. Our product is more natural, it's better. So like by using our product, you're not harming the environment and you're not hurting other people. That's an ethical appeal.
So could it be like vegan leather? Like how the company would advertise this is vegan leather as opposed to
vegan leather in and of itself to us, right, is an ethical thing. But if they show you how it's ethical and they say like, we're not killing baby cows or whatever, I don't know. I don't even know. But you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If they show you that, then yes, that's an ethical appeal. Okay? My daughter walked into, what's that place called? One of those taco places. I forget which one. One of the ones that's in Dallas. And on the wall, they have the menu of all the tacos. And they have a picture of a cow and a picture of a pig and a picture of a chicken. And she's like, Mom, why do they have the animal pictures by the food? Like, do they serve those animals here? I was like, baby, every restaurant serves those animals. That's what happens when you eat a hamburger. And her face was like, and I was like, did I wait too long to have this conversation? I don't understand, but like for her, she never made the connection between the picture and the order, right? And so it was a little bit crazy to her. So to her, she might make an ethical, and she started talking about it, and I was like, shut up. Because she started saying it as we were going up to order, and I was like, be quiet. Everyone that's in here wants to eat meat. Shh. Okay? Y'all, she's 8. I don't understand where she came from, though. I don't. It's not from me, I don't think. Well, I know that it was from me, but like that perspective is strange to me. So that's rhetoric. Are you guys clear on rhetoric? I mean, you may not feel super comfortable with it until you really sit down and look at a commercial and think about it. Okay, that's when it'll start to really click in your head. So hopefully that sort of makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna try to draw this over here. Annabella, can you see the video? Is it like on still? I mean, I know it's on, but what I mean is, if I write here, can you see that on the thing?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna talk about the Toulmin Method. So this is the lens through which you're gonna analyze the ad, right? And then you're gonna use the Toulmin Method to physically write your paper. We're gonna talk about the Toulmin Method until your ears physically feel like they're bleeding. Okay, you're gonna be so over it. But I'm telling you right now, you will use it in government, you'll use it in history, you use it when you write applications to go to other schools. Whatever you're gonna do, whenever you're doing any writing, you'll use it. Okay, so first, I give my classes a thesis statement model. This is 1302. I would like for you to use it as a guide. If you killed your 1301 class, you got an A, and you had a challenging teacher, not just an A in, Joe Schmo's class who is an easy teacher, okay? Really think about who you had. If you had me and you got an A, you're probably good, okay? then you want to more strictly follow this. If you killed the game, you don't necessarily have to strictly follow this. Use it as like your guide for your thesis statement. Does that make sense, guys? But if you struggled in English, use it exactly as I've written it. It's okay to do that. Think of this thesis statement model as your crutches, right? And you're trying to recover from an injury. And your writing is the injured thing here, right? Okay? You're trying to recover from injury. The more you practice walking on those crutches and the more you heal, you might be able to just use a cane. Or you might be able to just use one crutch, right? And then eventually you might just hobble along and then eventually you're good. Does that make sense? Use these as your crutches however much you need. It will not affect your grade whether you use this strictly, but if you choose not to use it strictly and you need to, it will affect your grade. Does that make sense? Okay. This marker smells ridiculous. I really hope it doesn't make me like dizzy or something. I feel like there's something happening with this marker. Just a warning, just in case. So, thesis statement, this is a thesis statement model. And I know this is on that handout. And I'll click on it so you guys can see it as I'm going through it. Sometimes my writing can't keep up with my speaking. Okay. There we go. Can y'all see that? Okay. So, although I argue that because blank, blank, and blank. Okay. Each of your essays should have the thesis statement. The thesis statement goes at the end of the introduction paragraph. Okay, most of you should know this information, but every so often I get a student or two that are like, nobody ever taught me this ever. And I don't know how you would get to this point, and shame on those people for doing that to you without teaching you. Okay, the thesis statement is the last sentence of the introduction. This has 3 parts, but is how many sentences? Don't answer, Brandon. Don't answer, you two. I know y'all know the answers.
Can you say that again?
This is 3 pieces, but how many sentences?
One.
1. Yeah, it's 1 sentence. That feels like a silly question. It's not. 1 sentence, okay? And it's a complicated sentence. And sometimes when my students go to the writing center, they're like, oh, they said this sentence is long. No, it's not. It's fine. As long as you're not uber wordy, it's fine, okay? So this is the counterclaim piece. So this is one piece of the opposite of your argument that you agree with, okay? One piece of the opposite of your argument that you agree with. A lot of teachers do not teach this way, but I do, and there are many reasons for that. Number 1 is because when you're talking to someone in life, which is where you'll need this, okay, you need to agree with them on a piece of what they're saying. Otherwise, they're probably not going to listen to you. If we're having an argument and you say that, this is just a silly example, but this is an example I like to use, and you say that LeBron James is the best player of all time in basketball, and I say, no, it's Michael Jordan. I don't know anything about basketball. I'm just using this as an example, okay? I'm not going to be like, no, you're wrong. The end. Where does the conversation or argument go from there? Nowhere, right? If I say, like, okay, LeBron does have more points scored per game on average than Michael Jordan, right? So I could see where you're coming from there,
I don't like Michael.
right? You said you don't, or you
I
do?
don't like LeBron.
See, I don't either. And that's why I like to use that example, because it's like a very polarizing thing, so you guys can kind of like think about where you're at there. Does that make sense? Okay? But I might say like, yeah, okay, maybe he has more points per game, but I really think that Michael Jordan is the best player that ever played. And I think that because of this stat, and this other example. Does that make sense, guys? Okay? So your counterclaim needs to be a piece of the other side that you agree with. If you can't find that, you have to, okay? You gotta figure it out, because that's like a skill that's gonna prepare you for life, right? Even if it's something like so minuscule, right? Okay, when you get to this piece, this is your main argument. For this essay, right, you're gonna probably say, I argue that the advertisement, whatever the name of it is, the Do It Today advertisement from Nike effectively convinces the audience to believe they can do whatever they put their mind to, or to purchase Nike products, right? Like, you pick what the focus is. Whatever you say here is what your paper is about, okay? Your argument is that the ad is effective in convincing the audience to whatever. You have to figure out what that whatever is, okay? And then here are your pieces of evidence, okay? This is the one piece that I say that students like pretend like they don't hear me say it, and I think it's because they don't want to agree with me or they were taught differently, okay? I want you to be a little bit more general here, okay? And then be specific in your paragraphs. And notice I put 3 blanks here, even though I told you guys earlier if you want to just write on pathos or just on one of these or just on 2 of these, change this here to reflect that at the bottom, okay? But because you're going to put because of the use of or whatever wording you want to use, and I'm just going to write these in this order for now. Logos, pathos, ethos. You are going to be specific in your paragraphs. If you have examples of how the ad appeals to ethics and then also how it shows credibility, those are separate paragraphs, but you're not going to list 15 things here, okay? This is an advanced writing class, so you give me the general terms and then the specifics come in your paragraphs, okay? So maybe you want to talk about music in one paragraph, images in one paragraph, empathy in one paragraph, and then maybe you actually have one for lyrics and one for sound. You're not going to list all of those here, okay? It's kind of contrary to, I know what some of you are taught. You're taught to list the specific examples all here. That's actually a lower level writing technique, okay? Be more broad here. Still give me like the general terms and then be specific in your paragraphs. Okay, and I know that sounds probably loopy, but I promise you I've been verified recently by like people who really are good at writing, okay? How do you decide what order to put these in? The order you write them in, the paragraphs, right? Yeah? How do you decide what order to put your paragraphs in? Y'all don't answer because y'all have heard this and I feel like y'all know the answer. I know you know it. It's really hard when you know the answer.
Would it be
Guys.
like the strength of your argument for each of them?
Yes. And which way do you build the strength? You start with the strongest or you build to the strongest? It's kind of a guess if you don't know, right? But if you think about it,
I mean, I think you build it the strongest.
Yeah.
Because you want to end on a strong note.
yes, yes. You build, thank you for not being afraid to be wrong just in case. You were right.
I'm
but-
totally okay with being wrong. That's-
Yeah. I'm that person. I'll raise my hand in class and be like, so I'm probably wrong, but I want to answer your question. And sometimes my teacher will be like, you're definitely wrong, but thank you for participating. And I'm like, I just wanted to try, right? And my classmates make fun of me for that. But oh well. But you were right. Build your argument. So if the strongest piece, and usually it is pathos, last. Okay? Put the strongest last. If you're trying to convince me that you want to have no more class for the rest of the semester, it's not happening. But if you wanted to, right? As far as I know, unless something's happening I don't know about, then you would have to start with something small, right? You would say, well, we have more time to take naps in the mid-morning during your class. And then we feel more energized. Okay, then you might build from there. We'd also have more time to get exercise, which really actually gives endorphins and helps our brain work better. Well, okay, all right, so we're getting there. And then lastly, we have even more time to work on our essays at home where we feel comfortable, and our essays would be even better, and you'd have to spend less time grading because we turned in better essays. And I'd be like, well, sold, there you go. Does that make sense, guys? So start small and then build. So you're gonna do the same thing here, okay? Does this make sense to you? Mostly-ish, yeah. This may be something you were already doing as a thesis statement, but maybe your teacher didn't sit down with you and say, this is how like you can do it and then fill the blank. You just probably figured out how to do it and you write a thesis statement, right? I like filling in the blank. It makes sense in my brain. So if you fill in the blank and then you want to like build it and make it better and more advanced from there, do that, but fill in the blank first and then work from there to make this sound even more advanced, okay? So that's the thesis statement model. After you get your thesis, write your thesis first, okay? You're gonna move into your body paragraphs. There are 3 steps for each body paragraph. I know that we're listening to this long lecture, but we're doing it today so we don't have to do it on Thursday most likely, right? Yeah. I say most likely, unless someone emails me and then I'll be here on Thursday. Okay, so we've got claim, data, and warrant. And I know that these words can feel scary to you. Each paragraph should have these 3 pieces. Okay, how long is a paragraph?
3 to 5 sentences.
3 to 5, but I want you to aim in this class for 5 to 8. Okay, aim for 5 to 8, because you can do better than you did in Comp 1. I'm training you guys, so when you're done with this class, if you want to go to UT and that's your goal, you're going to go to UT and you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I went to this community college and I feel like I'm not prepared. You're going to be like, I'm killing the game. I'm awesome. I'm going to be amazing. Okay? Because I used to come at it from the opposite perspective, and I learned my lesson when students were like, I went to UT and now I feel like I'm drowning, and I'm like, I'm not doing that to my students anymore, ever. Okay? So, claim, data, warrant. The claim is the topic sentence. You guys are likely already writing using this model and you just don't know it. Okay? Topic sentence. So you're going to have a sentence at the beginning of your paragraph that tells you the topic of the paragraph, right? Tells me the topic, tells you the topic, tells anyone who reads it the topic. Okay? So your topic might be how the ad uses logos to convince the audience. So you might say, this is an oversimplified version, okay? The advertisement uses logos to convince the audience to buy this toothpaste when they give a statistic about the number of people who tried the toothpaste in the trials, right? So you're telling me you're going to talk about logos and you're going to give me a statistic. And then you're going to explain how that statistic that you gave convinces the audience to buy the toothpaste, okay? See, I'm making this more like math science-y because I know that a lot of y'all prefer that like more prescribed, like organized way of doing this, and this is a good way to do that, okay? It takes the anxiety out of writing much more than what I had before I learned this. And I did not learn this until graduate school, the end of graduate school. So, you guys are getting it ahead of time. All right, so that topic sentence should relate to something here. One of your subclaims. These are called subclaims. I didn't say that earlier. I'll take a picture of this when I'm done and post it as a part of the video. So this sentence should have a word or something that ties to one of these and tells me, hey, Professor G, I know you're reading my paper. This paragraph is about this subclaim or this one, right? Essentially. Okay? Then you're going to get to the data piece of the paragraph. Okay, you can assume what this means. What does it mean? If you say something, then you got to back it up with data. Where are you going to get this from?
From the ad?
Yeah, from the ad, right? The ad is the text that you're analyzing here. Now, just so you guys know, on this handout, I have written an additional explanation for each paper you write in this class. So if you look at this handout for the next paper, right, you might say, oh, for a literary analysis, my data is from the piece of literature I'm analyzing, right? For the argument research essay, my piece of data is the research that I found. For this paper, it's the piece of an advertisement that you're talking about. So if you're saying the ad uses logos when they give this statistic, you're going to give me the statistic, right? So this is the direct evidence, right? And it's usually a quote, okay, or something. if you're talking about an image, just describe the image. Pause the advertisement where it's at and describe what you see. Don't describe and give me a summary of the whole ad. This is where students start to get into summarizing. Don't do that. A summary and an analysis are two different things. Okay? I could tell you about my day and write every single moment of what happened to me, right? That's a summary of my day. But if I want to analyze it, I might say, what does it mean that, this morning I went for a run and my run felt really hard? What was going on in my brain when that happened, right? Does that make sense, guys? Analysis versus summary. Summary is very surface level. Analysis goes deeper, okay? And I'm supposed to be teaching you guys how to go deeper. So, this is my direct evidence. You might use the signal phrase, for example. Okay, signal phrases are another one of those crutch things. If you don't need it, don't use it. But you can use it, and you should use it if you want to. It's totally fine with me, right? The signal phrase signals me and your brain that you're about to give the data, right? So if I say, for example, you know I'm about to give you an example. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, so we have a signal phrase here, and then we have one here. So the data is just the example. So you might say, for example, the advertisement gives the following statistic, and then put a colon, and then say, 90% of people who tried the toothpaste felt their teeth were whiter, right? There's the statistic. That's all the data is, okay? Well, let me say this, and I've said this to y'all. My 8-year-old she's got a bunch of special needs, a bunch of learning disabilities. She's a smart kid, but she's smart in different kinds of ways than a neurotypical person. And if I explained these to her, she could find these in a commercial. She could say, okay, that's logos, and here's the example, and make the connection. This part, though, would be very difficult for her, okay? And this is where you guys are college students and you need to be doing this, okay? So, there it is. The warrant has 3 parts, okay? What is a warrant, y'all? If you hear that word outside of me saying it here.
Justification.
It's a justification, right?
This shows that.
Yeah. If someone comes to you and says, I have a warrant for your arrest, they have a piece of paper, and it's a paper that shows why they're coming to you, right? Yeah, you guys have heard that word, right? Okay, so don't feel overwhelmed when you see the word here. Students have a brain block and they're like, it's too hard, I don't understand. I'm like, yes you do, you know the word. It means the same thing, right? Don't overcomplicate it, okay? So there's 3 pieces here. If you sit down and you analyze this ad and you just ask yourself these 3 questions and follow these 3 pieces, you're going to do so well on this paper, you're going to amaze yourself, okay? But if you're like me, and you don't want to write an outline, and you don't want to try to plan out your paper, which I was that person and I have been until recently, then you're going to just make it really complicated for yourself. Whereas if you force yourself to slow down, you're going to spend less time working on this and be less frustrated. Okay, so 3 pieces. They're here on the screen as well. The first piece is explain how the data that you gave in this paragraph is logos, pathos, or ethos. I'm going to abbreviate by writing LP or E. Okay? The sentence that I give you as an example here is applicable. This is logos because, right? Now, it's obvious to us if we say that 95% of people who tried this toothpaste is an example of logos, right? But sometimes you guys are going to pick one of these, and it's not going to be obvious to me how you're seeing it as pathos or as ethos. And that's where I need you to say, this is pathos because it appeals to the audience's sense of emotions by making them feel sad when they see the tears on the woman's face, or whatever. Does that make sense? In this piece of the paragraph, if you feel like you're over-explaining, you're probably doing it right. If you don't feel like you're explaining too much, you probably need more. Okay? Because I am not inside your brain. So I don't know what you're thinking when you see this ad, why it's convincing to you. Maybe I disagree with you, right? You've really got to convince me and give me these details. And if you know more than one language, sometimes it's easier to call someone or talk to someone and be like, can I talk this out with you? And then the thoughts flow out a little easier than sitting like inside of your head trying to type it. Okay? So, explain how this data is logos, pathos, or ethos. 2, interpret the data in your words. Okay. This one tricks people up all the time, but here's an example. If I say 95% of the people who tried this toothpaste felt their teeth were whiter, how can you interpret that piece of data in your words? What does 95% mean? And that's what I want you to explain in your words, but I'm actually asking you.
A lot of people.
A lot of people, okay, be more specific about what is, you're right, what does 95% mean specifically?
Majority.
The majority, most, right? That's how you explain it in your words. So like you watched the full advertisement, you understand the data they're giving, hopefully, right? Now you explain it to me, okay? Pretend you're the lawyer in this situation, right? Take the evidence that they gave and explain to me what it means. Imagine that I don't know automatically what 95% means, okay? And then lastly, tie back to your thesis, okay? There's a signal phrase here. You can use it at any of these steps. It goes best kind of in the middle. This shows that. Okay, the word this here means the data that you gave. Okay, sometimes students get stuck in here and they're like, I don't know how to explain why this is convincing you to do something, right? And I'm like, use this little crutch, because it'll make your brain explain, right? This piece of evidence, 95% of people who tried this toothpaste felt their teeth were whiter, shows that, right, the majority of people who tried the toothpaste felt that it worked. And therefore, if the majority of the people who tried this toothpaste felt that it worked, then it's most likely that the product will work for others in the audience watching the commercial, and therefore the commercial is effective in convincing the audience to buy the toothpaste. Do you guys see how I'm connecting back? Okay. Sometimes you're in a paragraph and your reader forgets what the point was, right? You got to come back at the end and say, hey, just so you remember, right? This ad is effective in convincing the audience, and that's why I'm giving you this piece of evidence. Guys, this is useful in conversations. This is useful in writing an entrance letter to a school. How about a letter of application to a job? Okay, really, really, really useful. You will sound like the smartest person ever, even if you're not. It's kind of like tricking, but like in a nice way-ish. Okay. So, I also have on this handout information on introductions and conclusions, okay? I'm not going to talk about them today because you guys are wiggly and I feel like I've talked way too long. I don't judge any of you, I'm wiggly too. I'm like, I need to stop talking for like 5 minutes to breathe and drink water. But the introduction and conclusion is on there, and we have plenty of time to talk about those in class as well. I wanted this information to get into your brain so you could marinate in it a little bit. Because sometimes my students feel overwhelmed at first because they're like, I've never heard this before. And I'm like, yeah, but you know what? This is how your brain actually works. Right? You just haven't heard the terms yet. Okay? So, marinate in them. Unless someone emails me saying, hey, I would really like to have class on Thursday to go over this information again, we will not have class on Thursday. Go home and rest and stuff. Okay, y'all have a couple people in here who are not feeling their best or who are worried about like being around someone or whatever. Okay, I'll keep you guys updated on that situation, although I think the school doesn't really have anything strict happening about that right now. But if something comes up to me, then I'll let you guys know and communicate that effectively to you. Does anyone have a question about any of this stuff? Don't be like that guy in the other class when I turn off the camera and then you're like, oh yeah, I do have a question. Because someone who's watching this video might have your question. You guys good? Okay, I know this was a lot of information. Let it digest, come back to it later. Okay? If you need me, I'm here. Have a discussion with me. This thing gives me a freaking headache.